Jack was an avid fisherman, and every morning he went to the lake near his village. The lake was deep and quiet, surrounded by dense forests. They said that it never froze in winter and that no one had been able to fully explore its depth. One early morning, while casting his line, Jack heard a strange hum. It was a low, drawn-out sound, reminiscent of a vibration coming directly from the water. "The motor must be somewhere far away," he muttered, but at that moment, the hum became louder. He looked around. There was no one around. A light fog swirled over the surface of the lake, and the sound seemed to come straight from the depths. The next day, the hum was repeated, only it became even clearer. It seemed to call, beckon, awakening a strange restlessness in Jack's soul. He told his friend about it, but he only laughed. "You're just tired. You fish too much." But Jack knew the sound wasn't his imagination. Every time he got close to the water, the hum grew louder. He could feel the vibrations through his rod, through the boat, and once even through the ground beneath his feet. "Something's wrong with this lake," he told himself, but he couldn't stop. The sound seemed to pull him back again and again. Nights by the lake were always quiet, but after the M appeared, the silence took on an oppressive tone. Jack could no longer sleep. It seemed to him that the sound was calling him, whispering in his head, even when he was far from the water. One night, unable to bear it any longer, he took a lantern and headed to the shore. The water was calm as a mirror, but the hum became louder, filling the air. Jack froze on the shore, peering into the darkness. A light fog spread over the water, but in its depths, something was moving. At first, he saw only ripples, then splashes. A dark figure appeared in the center of the lake. It slowly rose from the water, and the hum became so strong that Jack felt it in his bones. The figure was tall, unnaturally thin, with long arms that seemed to stretch beyond the limits of possibility. Its silhouette was black, but it seemed to absorb the light of the lantern. Jack took a step back, but couldn't look away. "Who are you?" he muttered, though deep down he knew she couldn't answer. The figure raised its head, and Jack saw two dim, pale lights that resembled eyes. They weren't just looking at him, they were studying him, as if deciding what to do with him. The hum became shrill, and Jack covered his ears, but the sound continued to ring right in his head. "Did you call for me?" he asked, not understanding why he was talking to this creature. The figure shook its head, then slowly walked toward the shore, not breaking eye contact. Jack stood there, paralyzed. The roar filled everything around him, and the figure slowly approached the shore. Its movements were unnatural, as if the water was resisting it, but it kept going. "No," Jack breathed out, backing away. His feet sank into the soft mud, and he felt the icy cold of the water touching his boots. The figure extended a hand, long and thin, with fingers resembling tentacles. "Stay away!" he shouted, but there was no strength in his voice. The hand grabbed his wrist. Jack felt the cold pierce his body, reaching his very heart. He tried to break free, but its grip was unbreakable. "You heard the call," the voice rang out. It was not a sound, but thoughts penetrating his head. "You are part of us now." The figure pulled him into the water. Jack screamed, clinging to the shore, but the water was stronger. It seemed alive, wrapped around his legs, pulling him deeper. He felt the cold filling his lungs, and the roar grew louder, consuming his mind. At the last second, he managed to see his reflection in the water, but it was no longer him. His eyes became as dim and glowing as the creature's. The next day, the locals noticed that Jack's boat remained near the shore, but he himself was nowhere to be found. Since then, people on the lake began to say that at night you can hear a roar, calling those who dare to approach the water. And if you listen, among the sounds you can hear Jack's voice, calling the next victims to the depths, where he has now forever become a part of the dark lake.